All right, peace, peace. Bargani, Islam, Salam, Etepu, Rahubat. Gino Lako Ninani, Chief Noble Bandele Elemi in the building. And I got a special guest in the building today. I ain't had my brother in the building in a minute. We got brother Keng El Bey in the building. Yes,
Sauced up,
sir.
ready to
Yes,
go.
yes,
What's
sir.
up?
Yes, sir. You
What's
know it,
up,
man.
family?
So today, if you guys haven't heard, today we're going to discuss about Trump's 14th Amendment issues that he has, the citizenship, birthright citizenship. So we're going to discuss the implications of that, what that really means, and the interpretations of what the 14th Amendment is. So, before we get into that, please, y'all, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get it going. I'm gonna hit you with an ad first, though. We're gonna get an ad, and then we're gonna start the show. All right.
Power in the melanin, she glows. Unified like Malcolm when we close. Pushing through the struggle, yeah, we chose. Solid as a rock, I love it grows. Speaking wisdom just like Dr. Umar knows. Dripping culture in our stance, it shows. On the front lines where that passion roars. Building empires, Kevin Samuels goals. Sitting at the table, he proposed. Melanated love, in America it flows.
All right. So, like I said, we back in the building, man. We got a good show. We're gonna have a real power pack show today. We got the brother Keng El Bey, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about this birthright citizenship. So, what I wanted to do, brother, is I wanted to show the video with Trump talking about it, and then if you could give your spiel on that, and then we can just keep going from there, if that's cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me see. Let me get it going. Let me start it up. All right, so here we go.
Law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch, the Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months, we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect, or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades. And we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts, and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she could talk as long as she wants, because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant. And they should be very proud, and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today. And with that, I'd like you to listen to the words of Pam Bondi. She's an incredible attorney general. We're very proud of her. And as you know, Todd Blanche is with us, and we have so many others that worked on this case and other cases. And I think they're doing a great job. Pam, please say a few words.
All right. I'm gonna stop it right there. All right. So y'all heard what he was saying. Y'all heard Trump. Y'all heard what he was saying. I mean, he's, the one thing that stick out is he's saying that the 14th Amendment is not for birthright citizenship for anybody, but it was for the children of slaves. That's what sticks out in my mind. He said that several times. So from what you heard, my brother, give me your understanding of what you're hearing from Trump in this.
I think he's reaching. He's trying to see if he can make some headway, understanding under that 14th Amendment application, under the constitutional application. Understanding that under the separation of powers, his executive order only reaches those who are under his authority. I'm going to repeat that. His executive orders only reaches those under his authority. So when it comes down to the Constitution itself, he has to put in an application. He cannot use an executive order, right, in a sense where he can argue the 14th Amendment. He has to put in an application and sue under the executive powers. And
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Yo. All right. I can't hear you, King. I cannot hear you. I'm not sure what's going on with your sound, but from what brother was saying, that he doesn't think that what Trump is really saying is going to have any standing. He feels that he's still got to go through he's got to go through not judicial, but he's got to go through legislation, because he's talking about the 14th Amendment, which is a legislative branch, and Trump being executive branch, he can't just override what the Constitution is saying, right? He can't just create an executive order to override something that was put into legislation, right? So I think that's what he was saying. Me and him talked about this earlier, and we had a few different discussions about it. But what I want to do while he tries to get back on, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys. We're gonna read a part of, so you can get a better understanding of exactly what they are saying that he's been able to do. So right here, I got a something from the BBC. I'm gonna make sure to see if he's back on here. All right, what I have is this is an article from the BBC on this, okay, about the Supreme Court ruling expands Trump's power. Okay, so they're saying that this ruling does help Trump in his power, and it says that, and he intends to use it. So Trump has put this landmark decision, right, by the Supreme Court. It says that the Supreme Court on Friday handed a significant victory to Donald Trump and future American presidents. It says when curbing lower courts' power to block executive orders. Okay, so what this did was this definitely gave more power to overcome the lower court issues. And we're going to get into this because it's really not all about just the 14th Amendment, right? This is really about the ability for executive powers to be able to override lower judicial power. Okay. So let me see if he's back on yet. Okay, he's not back yet. So it says that Trump was beaming as he addressed reporters at the White House, like we saw, right? We just seen that. He's saying that it was a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law. And that's a major word that we discuss among us, is the rule of law. It says that the court decision not only impacts Trump's birthright citizenship order, but also emboldens him to enact many of his other policy actions that have been temporarily thwarted by similar injunctions. So what this is really talking about is his ability to be able to overcome injunctions. And this is a tactic that Democrats and Republicans have used over the years to try to stop presidential executive orders. Okay. So let's go. Hold on. Let's see. Where am I at? Okay. So it says the impact on birthright citizenship. Right. Hold on. Let me put King back in, y'all. All right. I see you back. I was just going over this real quick about what the article was talking about. So I was talking about his impact on this court decision, the Supreme Court decision, how it really has an impact on things, right? So it's saying that the impact of birthright citizenship, the Supreme Court has opened the door for the Trump administration to no longer grant automatic citizenship to everyone born on American soil, at least for the moment. Now the White House will have to implement its plan, which will be no easy task. On Friday, the nation's highest court allowed Donald Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship to go into effect in a month's time, while leaving room for lower courts to curb the impact on those who have standing to sue. Okay, so I'm gonna stop right there now. So, like I said, King is our major legal facilitator, among the temple and other places. So I want you to give me what you got out of that right there.
So in the Supreme Court ruling, basically they're trying, I guess this is, when you read articles, you got to check the source and fact check what it, exactly what's being, stated. But they're saying to the degree that the Supreme Court has opened the door for Trump to be able to stop allowing the citizenship birthright just by birth alone. So, so most countries anyway, to get citizenship, you have to go through what they call a nationalization process. You have to take an oath, you have to do all of that. And normally once you induct yourself into that jurisdiction, you kind of absorb that jurisdiction, and maybe you can denounce other jurisdictions on the basis that you're going to serve allegiance to that particular country. Now, under the 14th Amendment application, you got to remember this: the Constitution is written. Neither the Supreme Court nor the executive branch nor the legislative branch can say they wrote it. Was a collective body of people who wrote the Constitution, in which created these three branches of government. So the Constitution birthed each branch, not the other way around. Each branch did not birth the Constitution. The Constitution is the mother of these three branches of government. And based on this outline of this Constitution, it dictates to each branch of government what their authority rights are, based on the delegations of authority stated by the Constitution. So I think this is a little overreach. We got to see how this play out, but you got to remember, it's the president is the what? He is the general of the what? Military. He's the general over the military. All the military, all enforcement agencies of the United States. He is the enforcer, right? So when he put in an order, it technically only can go to them. So when each branches of government, right, especially the legislative and them two, the legislative and the executive branch, when they really want to step into each other's jurisdiction based on one doing something to the other, they have to, pretty much sue for that. So I think there's a little overreach. I don't want people to get too nervous about this order. See how the government and see what the other bodies do, to see what they try to do to stop or railroad this, however they may go about it. But
Right.
let's just see how this pan out. I don't want people to get overwhelmed with this decision until we see what the courts actually say and do in that petition, because citizenry based on argument, based on a constitutional application, an individual can sue on those grounds. They could sue the executive branch. They could sue the government. Take it to the Supreme Court and say, hey, whatever you guys did, based on here's evidence, previous Supreme Court decisions, based on this application in the context, based on the constitutional minutes, based on the history of this document in itself, looking at because when you go back and look at constitutional minutes that these people were discussing, because they kept records of what they was doing in each of these applications, have a group of men discussing what that 14th Amendment meant. So now you got to look at it from a historical context, not just from that, but look at from a understanding the constitutional minutes associated with every statute and every article. There are discussions. So if you really want to be a constitutionalist, you need to go look at what they said about the 14th Amendment and the rights that's been bestowed upon that right as we look at the 14th Amendment. So what could I say? They won't do something unconstitutional? Of course, they do it all the time. They create laws all the time that's unconstitutional. They're about private rights. They do it all the time.
Exactly.
So what people don't understand until somebody bring it up, right? Because most of us don't pay attention to politics and legislation enough to be able to say, oh, we don't know enough of the law to be able to challenge anything that the government is doing, because a lot of us is in the dark. So for me, understanding that the executive branch only can control the people within its jurisdiction, which is the military and every department that is under, that it controls, then I understand that there could be some discrepancies in interpretation based upon one who's not legally astute. It doesn't matter what source it come from if they're not legally sound in constitutional law.
Okay, so you're trying to say the BBC is not sound enough to give you a basic understanding of it? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, we got to look at who influenced these
Right. It could be democratic, political. It could be.
So we got to look at what is the driving force behind some of these players that's playing in this game, in this game of politics, and what is their initiative, and who's driving behind them, who they're supporting. So that also give credence
Okay.
to what is being spoken about, right?
Right. Okay.
That's leading. So
Okay.
just because we say, well, this is a credible source, we got to look at, it's a lot of politics being done. A lot of parties are moving around. Who was the president of these organizations, and what shift change has been made since Donald Trump been in politics and been in now? Who has he moved around in government, and who has he put in play? You know what I'm saying? Because those things pay dividends when you bringing your people along and bringing them up, and you want them to do and say what you want them to say, right? So we're talking about the game of politics. This is what this all about. So he fired a lot of people when he came into office. Got rid of a lot of people that he felt like they weren't his constituents. That's what be an ally. So
I got you. So I just wanted to read this other part too, because like what it was talking about, it was saying that states traditionally handle processing birth certificates, and many do not record the citizenship of the parents. Democratic run state governments will be in no rush to do so, no matter what the Trump administration may desire. So that kind of goes along with, I think, what you've been saying about it. He's going to have opposition for sure with this, especially from the Democratic Party. They're going to definitely fight this. But it is interesting that it's true that, most states that, especially in our state, that they don't have the citizenship of the parent on the birth certificate. Do you think, this possibly could change the way that, especially Republican ran states, how they may process birth certificates now?
Yeah.
You might have on the birth certificate that the parent is a non-citizen, or, is a undocumented immigrant, things of that nature. So it is very interesting in that. So it's going to be a lot of battles that's going to go on. Like I said, this sets up big legal battles to come. So of course, this order is not going to just come down and be across the board. There's going to be a lot of different political fights that's going to go along with that, for sure. But this is in my opinion, this is a big deal for presidents in the future, being able to bypass, or what they said, curbing the lower court power.
Right.
So a lot of people are not realizing that it's not so much just about the birthright citizenship that he's trying to get past, but it's more so about the ability that the lower courts can't stop him like they were. So it could be any executive order that we're talking about that he can have more power to get it done, not just this birthright citizenship clause, right? So I want to say, let's go to the 14th Amendment. I'm gonna let you go. We're gonna talk about the 14th Amendment real quick, and then we're gonna kind of go into a little bit more into something else. But I did want to show that real quick. I'm gonna put it up here, and then you can kind of go into this too, and you can stop me whenever you want me to stop. All right. So we're looking at the 14th Amendment, Section 1. We've talked about the 14th Amendment before, but now that this is going on, we got to look at it again. It's saying that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that and its interpretation of it.
Okay, all persons born or naturalized. So we're talking about born or naturalized. Those two actions. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subjects to the jurisdiction. It says and subjects. So that's the third. That's a conjunction. And subjects to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So you got all persons born, naturalized in the United States, and subjects to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state where they reside. So we got to analyze that to understand. There's a three actions: all person born or naturalized in the United States and subjects to the jurisdictions thereof are citizens of the United States. So we know that the Constitution, we talking about the birth of federalism, right? We're talking about federalism. The Constitution is introducing federalism, and the states are now coming together under one body of government. So they're taking three separate actions to say that a person born. So you would have to go and look at the constitutional minutes to see what do they mean by all persons born. What was discussed? For those who want to really understand that, I'm not going to give you everything, but I'm going to give you where you can go find a source. Go look at the constitutional minutes of the United States Constitution, who was all involved, who wrote that. Now, as we look at the Constitution and understanding that this is an application, if you know anything about me, I talk about source of law, application of law, right? Operation of law, findings of facts, and what? Conclusion of the law. Conclusion of the law. These are elements. When we're dealing with the rule of law, because he said that, the rule of law, I talk about the rule of law, how it sits at the head and it was birthed out of equity. Equity was what was used, and then it evolved into another practice and under the customs, and it became the rule of law. Law was based on that, and there's several elements. What we need to discuss and try to understand with this 14th Amendment. Now, the United
hold on. Let me go back out. Let me put you back out.
Under the 14th Amendment, we got to look at. Would you be able to pull up Article 2 of the executive branch to show where his executive power come from? What could he do under that operation?
Article 2 of the Constitution?
Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all please like this video. If y'all coming in, y'all please like this video. Let me go to the here right here. Let me pull this up, see if I can pull it up. Share this instead. Article 2, Section 1. So right here, we're looking at Article 2, Section 1.
Right.
Can you read it? Or you want me to read it, or can you read it?
I can read it. It
Okay.
says, the executive powers shall be vested in one president of the United States of America. He shall hold his he shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, and together with the vice president, if chosen for the same term, he elect as follows. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislative thereof may direct. Hold on, let's go back. I want y'all to read this as it relates to this. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislative thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the number of the senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled into Congress, but no senator or representative or open holding a office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed as an elector. Then let me
Check.
see.
Okay, hold on. I'm about to go back.
So the president is vested powers. He is vested with the power of presidency. And he only got a 4-year term. So what do that mean? So let's go. Let's go down. Let's keep going down.
Right here.
Yep. It says, it keep popping in. It says the Congress may determine of choosing the electors and the day on which shall be given their vote, which shall be the same throughout the United States. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible of office of president, neither shall any person be eligible to the office who shall not have attained the age of 35 and shall and between 40 years as resident within the United States.
Right. So also too, like when they say an executive order, that executive order can be overturned by another president. Right. So it's not. It only needs another president to overturn it. Okay. Is there anything else you want me to keep going down or read or?
Section 2.
Okay.
It says the president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army, Navy of the United States and the militia of several states, and when called to actual service of the United States, he may require the opinion in writing of the principal office in which the executive branch upon any subject relating to the duties thereof of their respective office, and shall have the power to grant reprieve and pardon for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. So
Okay.
I need you to understand where his powers lie. When you look at this article, go through, understand what the president could do. So understanding that, can he undo the Constitution or challenge how it's being interpreted. So he can put in something to say that, but he can't order nobody around but the people under his jurisdiction. And it said that he's the commander in chief of the military.
So are you trying to say that all he can order is the military and the executive branches that fall under that? Is that
Yes.
what you said? So you okay, go ahead. It's an
He
order.
only has order. It's just like me. If I'm a supervisor over, let's say, the shoe department, I cannot put in an executive order over another manager's or supervisor's role over a particular group of people in which he's man. I can't order them to do something, right? He can use his executive powers to say, we're gonna challenge the constitutionality of it, and we're gonna petition, right? And you may use this order within our construct under a proper application of law to challenge that, but he can't direct anybody outside of his branch or authority to do or change or make them do something who is not under his jurisdiction.
Okay. Y'all hear that, people? Y'all hear that? If y'all got any questions, man, please, hit us in the comments. Don't be scared to do that. Was there anything else you wanted to read on that part, or not? Because I did want to show something else.
I'm now go ahead.
You good? Okay. I just want to be sure. I'm not trying to. Let's see.
Right.
So, there was this other part. So it's this book called The Original Meaning of the 14th Amendment. I wanted to briefly look at this part, just a section in this book. So right here, it talks about Justice Bradley, and he summarized the 14th Amendment. It says in this letter, Justice Bradley summarized with just one omission our thesis concerning the original meaning of the 14th Amendment. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because Trump made mention of the 14th Amendment was just for the baby of slaves, or right, something to that effect. So I wanted you to get into that as well. But I wanted to, since he said that, let's look at the original context or the original meaning of what the 14th Amendment was supposed to be. So it says that the privileges or immunities clause protects those substantive rights which may be demonstrated fundamental from being violated by state governments. These fundamental rights include the enumerated rights discussed by Justice Bushrod Washington in an 1823 case. Okay. We'll have to look at that one day. It says that they also include enumerated rights, such as those set forth in the First Amendment, which Bradley affirms were expressly secured to the people. It says that the equal protection of law clause is not limited to barring state action, but also imposes an affirmative duty on states to act. As Bradley put it, denying includes inaction as well as action. A denial of equal protection of laws extends beyond a state's officials failing to protect the privileges and immunities of its citizens. It extends as well to failures of states to enact laws for their protection. Okay. Okay. It says, or in Bradley's words, the omission to protect as well as the omission to pass laws for protection. Section 5 of the 14th Amendment empowers Congress to remedy the failure of state governments to protect these rights by creating its own federal enforcement procedures to guard against the invasion of the citizens' fundamental rights and to secure their adequate protection as well against state legislation as state inaction or incompetence. The amendment gives Congress power to enforce the amendments by appropriate legislation. And then finally, laws enacted by Congress pursuant to Section 5 powers will operate directly on offenders and offenses. Indeed, giving that Congress cannot commandeer or compel the activity of state officials. This is the only appropriate legislation it can make. So, let me ask you, brother, is based on what you read, do you see anything that you want to expand on, or?
Well, the 14th Amendment was actually for Black people. I mean, it was used to, under historical context, it was used to under that application to allow us to gain some type of citizenship, because we couldn't gain state citizenship. So it was, I mean, it was for that. It wasn't just for Black babies. It was for Blacks in general to get jurisdiction. I mean, to have some type of citizenship. So, federal citizenship. So this, understanding what he was saying in this article and in this book, that he was trying to break down in relationship to the 14th Amendment and what is some of its intentions. I don't think he addressed I don't think he went over everything, but he was just trying to give people some kind of glance into this book and what the 14th Amendment means, to see if if we discussing and hitting the mark a little bit with the 14th Amendment.
Check. Yeah, it's a thick book. I just picked that section out because it was, what I'm saying. But yeah, you're right. You're exactly right about that. If people don't understand, the 14th Amendment is not just about citizenship. It's like it was saying, it's really about the protection of your rights.
Right.
It also deals with due process, correct?
He said, right, but he said substantive, right?
Yes.
A lot of us got to understand what that means when we talk about substantive rights. What is that in law? That's a legal term. And I really want to talk about this slavery too, right? When he said for slaves, right? And a lot of us, we need to understand that term slave is a misnomer. It's not a legal term. You cannot go nowhere in international law or even sue in any court for slavery. Why? Because that is not a legal term that can be used under any application to award you a remedy. So
Right.
they identified.
Slave is dealing with Slavic.
Right.
Right.
So we talking about, they gave us this Black identity only to put you in a subjugated status, to keep you there. The purpose is to miseducate you. So we got to be careful about who is educating us once again, because we've been in a long battle of being miseducated for a long time about who we are based on this legal system and our rights associated with this legal system. So I want to just bring up something so you can do some research. Look up territorial sovereignty in its relationship and under international application, and understand and look up and see if you can find any international term for slavery. What you will find is terms called subjugation and cession. There, and see if you can find any case law that supports you under a constitutional form of government that granted slaves any remedy.
Hey, did you say territorial sovereignty? Is that what you said?
Territorial sovereignty.
All right.
And look up under the application of any federal statute from the Constitution to any federal law, right? We're talking about any application under that federal jurisdiction from see if you can win a case on slavery. Anybody won a case on slavery?
I say no, right?
Yeah. You're not going to find one person that you can say, they're going to say, well, Abe Lincoln represented the Moor. And when I'm talking about slavery, in a sense, they was misidentifying him, putting him under a category as slave, in which he was able to challenge and beat that. They was putting an identity on him. But see if anybody won any reparations, who been made whole, whose property been stripped under that application of slavery. Anyone who can say, well, I got a remedy in a sense where I was made whole, where my ancestors owned this land. My ancestors had this amount of wealth that they stole, and I'm suing based on the discrimination practice of slavery or any of that application, and see where it leads you.
Down a dead end.
Exactly.
Right.
So we got to. It's time for us to come together and start understanding and having these discussions on these constitutional applications, because that's what it is. If I make an argument for the Fourth or Fifth Amendments, I'm coming under the constitutional application of that amendment and how the Supreme Court had ruled or made findings associated with that application. Now, if I come under saying due process associated with this statute, right? Because a lot of times we're getting charged with a statute. They're pulling us in under a statute. And now you want to argue the Fourth and Fifth Amendment due process clause. And you saying, well, they still have to, even to enforce their statute, they have to follow this constitutional requisite of due process.
Right.
And they still have to allow me to uphold my fundamental practices, right? My rights that was given by God that no government gave, they're outside, that every man is inherit these rights. These are inherent rights that's done from birth. That's why the Bill of Rights was so important to understanding how to look at an individual and determine what his rights were, right? Because these are inherent in every human being across the world. So when we look at this and we hear Donald Trump and his rhetoric, right, that he's doing an executive order, that he's going to challenge that application, do an executive order, and the Supreme Court looking at it and saying, okay, we're going to look at it, we're going to entertain it. What he did was he petitioned the court and he said, hey, the lower courts, these statutory creatures, they don't have any authority to stop me because I'm not under their jurisdiction. What I'm arguing something on a constitutional level that's not technically affecting them. I'm arguing the Constitution. I didn't argue a statute or a code. I'm arguing the constitutionality of what's going on and how the 14th Amendment is being used. And I need the Supreme Court to look at that.
Yes.
Just look at that, re-examine that. Now, who is the party? There has to be a party. You can't put in a lawsuit against by yourself. He's trying to use an executive order to argue against who? Because you understand that the state and the county each other all the time. You understand that the federal, that the different branches sue each other all the time.
Right.
They sue in the Supreme Court under original jurisdiction based on things that's going on internally. So
Right.
who is the party in the lawsuit?
Who is it? Tell the people, man. Who was he suing?
Oh, I haven't really examined all the way through it. I'm trying to see.
Right.
Did he say what, the first district, federal district court? Who did he list?
I want to say it was definitely a district court. I'm not sure exactly which one, but then that's another thing too, is we're gonna get into in this second. Well, I ain't gonna say second part, but in the next part of this, we're gonna look at the political aspect, right? So before we do that, I'm gonna hit y'all with a quick ad. Please do not go away. It's gonna be quick. We'll be right back. We got a lot more to deal with. All right.
Oh, if they just let me see, or it's just on me, it's showing me the light. Once they set us free, knowledge is the key, guiding me all right, and that feel right.
All right. And like I said, y'all can get our books. Keng El Bey got books. We got Brother Abdullah Bey got books. All those books can be found on indigenousmoors.org. Y'all can find my books. We talk about the treaty rights. We talk about a lot of what we're talking about today in those books. So y'all can go check those books out. All right. So now we're going to deal with a little bit on the different side. We got to look at the other aspect of this, because we've been talking about the constitutionality of this, but we're actually looking at the implication of what him being able to overrule the lower courts. What is that really about? The political aspect of it. So I'm gonna play this video of this sister. She kind of breaking it down, and we can kind of dissect this, brother. If we're not okay. So y'all check what she's saying. This is important. All right. Oh shoot, hold on.
Decade. And it was concerning the president's executive order to overturn birthright citizenship. Except technically it wasn't about the birthright citizenship concept. Instead, the focus was nationwide injunctions. Daria, what are nationwide injunctions? Well, they're basically court orders issued by a federal district judge that blocks a policy, a law, or in this case, an executive order. And that court ruling applies across the entire United States, not just within the judge's district or even circuit. And I'll be honest with you, they're pretty controversial. When I was in law school, there was discussion on both the right and the left about not liking them, because it essentially gives immense power to one judge to block a president's initiative. President Obama wasn't a fan of them. And if you take a look at this chart, you can see that they've increased over the last 20 years, with DJT being the outlier and having the most. Another reason they're a problem is because they encourage this thing called forum shopping. Now, stick with me, it's basically what the name suggests. Plaintiffs go shopping for a district or judge that they know will be sympathetic to their case. So, for example, say you have a civil rights case. You're probably going to want to file that in San Francisco, which is considered liberal, as opposed to a place like Beaumont, Texas, where you're more likely to get a Republican or conservative judge. And that's basically what DJT's lawyers argued in court today. Why, for instance, should a judge in Wisconsin get to set the laws for the whole country? It was 2 hours of arguments, and the judges were going back and forth a lot. Even the conservative members seemed to be weighing the options. At one point, Justice Brett Kavanaugh offered an alternative approach and said that perhaps class action lawsuits, where all those who were affected by DJT's laws would be a better avenue. Still, he seemed to be grappling with the birthright citizenship part. He questioned DJT's lawyers on how this would even work. What would a hospital do when a baby is born? How would the parents prove that they're citizens? Would the baby just not get a birth certificate? And the president's lawyer couldn't really give him a straight answer. Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas seemed more inclined to get rid of nationwide injunctions. And to be clear, if nationwide injunctions are removed, that would mean each parent or person would have to file individually in court, which is not only expensive, they would need to get a lawyer, it would also take a long time. And it could lead to a situation where you have birthright citizenship in New York, but not in Florida, which is a point Justices Kagan and Sotomayor seem to highlight. Based on the arguments today, it looks like it could go either way. And it's likely that nationwide injunctions will be curbed to some extent, perhaps with the court establishing guidelines on where they think it's proper and improper. The justice system is one of the last branches holding the line against some of the unconstitutional acts by the administration. So if the judges' powers are limited by the Supreme Court, that would be a major win for DJT. So today, the Supreme Court heard probably...
All right. So she said a lot. Sister was going into a lot.
I kind of agree with her. It wasn't about the 14th Amendment. It was about removing the injunctive powers to override the president, based on certain strategies and whatever. Those, I think that was the basis of what he was doing. Just trying to get them to cripple the how how they go about doing this process, saying that it's unconstitutional, making it very hard and challenging for the president to have um, to petition and put in a court. So you got to understand, there's you have, when he put in these injunctions, these courts put in these injunctions and put in these things that put him in a pickle where now he can't move in no court because it's across. When you get, there's two types of injunctions. There's permanent, and then there's preliminary injunctions. So if I put in a permanent injunction, that means you can't act on this application for nothing, for no reason, no justify. You can't justify it. We saying that you can't work on this. So that's what he's ultimately trying to do. So he can now petition and move freely and stop what these judges are doing, because the Supreme Court has jurisdiction over what? Other judges.
Right.
You
The
see what
fact that, right, the fact that, like she said, shopping. I can go to a conservative court to get more remedy for what I'm trying to do versus a liberal court.
right,
And how these courts impact the whole nation, and they're only in certain districts under certain Democratic or Republican favor.
right,
So that's what it really, everybody's overlooking at. Everybody's looking at, oh, he's doing something to the Constitution, or you're talking about birthright citizenship, but he's not really looking at it's bigger than that, because this deals with more than just birthright citizenship. This deals with any executive orders that he puts through, or any president puts through.
exactly. So now he's trying to free up the roles of the presidency based on what he can do within his jurisdiction and not be so constrained. Getting the courts to say, hey, your guys are acting rogue and they're not being fair, having fair dealings in their practice, because, like you said, I can go here and here, versus then this should be an issue for the Supreme Court only, should be able to hear these matters, right?
Exactly. So that was, I think that's pretty interesting information that we got going, and that, hopefully this can explain to a lot of people exactly what's going on with this order, this birthright citizenship, and in its implications. So that's really all I had to say on that, bro. I don't know if anything else. I know you got stuff going on today.
Yeah. So I got to get up out of here, but I think it was more about not the 14th Amendment and citizenship, but I think it was more about getting these federal courts out of here, right? Getting these federal courts from being able to put their paws on the presidency and stopping him from being able to move forward with certain things. So on that note, my brother, I'm gonna get up out of here. Um, Peace and love.
Yes, sir.
I'm out of here.
Yes, sir. It's good having you again, my brother. Pro Se Morris is back in the building. We ain't had a video in a long time, so it was good to have you back.
Yeah, we finna engage deep. It's a lot of stuff coming. So wait, we unraveling. A lot of us been having challenges with legal issues, not understanding how to deal with these things in a legal form, the proper way. We finna start killing a lot of the misconceptions about, all of this stuff. We're gonna teach you the proper concept. We're gonna use this platform to help people see and kill some of these sovereign movements in a sense where they're not sensible, right? We're going to shed light and kill all these misconceptions about how this stuff works and under these applications, and understand how law works internationally and domestic. We're going to bring some things. We're going to show you how we know how to move legally. So based on that, peace and love to everybody. I'm out.
All right. Tuta Nana.